She wasn't supposed to find it, just needed the login because they shared the laptop sometimes. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious, only trying to check whether a direct deposit had cleared before she moved money between their accounts. She typed in what she thought was the banking app, but it wasn't. It was his payroll portal, and right there at the top of the screen, the number. Not the number she expected, not even close to it. She just sat there for a moment, completely still, reading it again because she genuinely thought she'd misread something. The salary showing on that screen was not the salary he had described to her when they were combining finances 4 years ago. It wasn't a little off. It was $4,200 a month more. She closed the laptop. It wasn't even intentional. Her hand just kind of moved on its own, closed it, stood up, and went to start dinner as though she'd seen nothing. She didn't say anything that night. She didn't know how to say it yet. Didn't even really know what she was saying. Was she supposed to be angry? She kept thinking, maybe there's an explanation, maybe this is a bonus figure, maybe this is pre-tax and she's reading it wrong. But it wasn't, and she knew it wasn't. And she made pasta, and they watched something on television, and she could not tell you a single thing about what they watched. They'd been together 6 years. Together, shared accounts, shared lease, shared grocery runs, the whole thing. She'd always assumed their money was one combined picture and that she understood it. He worked in project management at a mid-sized tech company. She worked in healthcare admin, not high earners, not struggling, somewhere in the middle with plans that felt real and achievable if they were careful enough. The plans were the thing, actually. They talked about buying a house. They talked about it constantly. The kind of couple who goes to open houses on weekends just to walk through someone else's life and imagine it as their own. But every time the conversation got concrete, every time she started running numbers on what they could put down, he'd slow it down. Not yet. The market's bad right now. Let's save a little more. Let's be smart about this. And she believed him. Of course she believed him. He'd always been more cautious with money than she was, more conservative, and she'd taken that to mean he was the careful one, the responsible one, the one who knew when to wait. She wasn't tracking his individual income very closely because they'd built this whole shared financial life that she thought she understood. Someone told me once, a woman who'd been through something similar, different circumstances, but the same basic shape. The hardest part isn't the secret itself. It's realizing how long you were functioning inside a story that had a different version running beneath it. She said it felt less like betrayal and more like suddenly seeing the stage machinery. I think about that a lot when I hear things like this. What she kept circling back to, what she couldn't let go of, was the not yet, because those weren't just words. Every time he said not yet, she adjusted something. She passed on a trip with friends she'd wanted to take. She kept driving a car with over 180,000 miles on it because replacing it felt irresponsible. She contributed less to her own retirement account for 2 of the 3 years he'd been hiding the salary gap because they were trying to save. She made smaller choices every single month inside a framework of scarcity that apparently wasn't real. And the thing that's genuinely difficult to sit with here, he hadn't stolen anything from her. Technically, the money he was earning was his. Their financial arrangement, as she understood it, was that they each contributed a fixed amount to the joint account for shared expenses and kept the rest separately. But she'd built her half of that arrangement on a picture she thought they both shared. He knew the picture was wrong, and he kept saying not yet anyway. That's the layer that's hard to name. It's not fraud, it's not theft. It's something quieter than both of those things. Let's run what was actually happening. His real take-home, after tax, after his 401k, was coming in around $7,800 a month. He was contributing $2,400 to their joint account, which covered his share of rent, utilities, and groceries. That left him with roughly $5,400 a month that she had no visibility into at all. Over 3 years, that's $194,400 moving through his personal account while she was making every financial decision on her side as though they were genuinely tight. She's been putting away maybe $600 to $700 a month in her own savings, which, across that same period, gives her somewhere around $23,000. And she thought that was a joint effort. She thought they were both grinding toward the same thing. The house they kept almost buying would have required a down payment of around $60,000 in their market. He had that. He probably had that within the first 18 months. The not yet was a choice, not a constraint. She carried it for 4 days before she said anything. 4 days of making coffee in the morning and asking about his day, watching him watch his phone at dinner. She said she almost felt sorry for him, in those 4 days. The way she could see him not knowing that the whole shape of things had shifted while he thought everything was exactly as he'd arranged it. She said the strangest part was how ordinary it all looked from the outside. The apartment was the same apartment. The routine was the same routine. She went to work and came home and made plans for the weekend, and every conversation felt like speaking from the bottom of a very deep, very still lake. I've thought about this one a lot, and the thing I keep landing on is that the financial structure was the problem before the secret was the problem. When couples combine some finances but not all, which is incredibly common, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. You need a shared understanding of the full picture. Not necessarily every detail, but the rough shape. Where we are, where we're headed, whether the story we're both telling ourselves matches reality. She didn't have that, and she didn't know she didn't have it, which makes me think, what would I actually do in that position, sitting with that number for 4 days? I think I'd want to separate the practical from the emotional before I said a single word, which is easier to say than to do, but genuinely matters here. The practical question is, what is an honest, fair financial arrangement between these two people going forward, and does the relationship survive a renegotiation of that from scratch? The emotional question is, why was this a secret at all? And those two questions don't have the same answer, which is the problem. Because financially, she should be looking at what her own picture looks like completely independent of his now. Her $23,000 in savings, her retirement contributions, what her income actually supports on its own, what she wants in 3 years if the relationship looks completely different than it does today. Not as a threat, just as information she should have had anyway and didn't. So she finally asked him calmly on a Sunday morning, and he had answers. He always wanted to tell her, he was going to surprise her, he was saving it for something specific. The story shifted a little in the telling, which is its own kind of answer, I think. The secrecy protected something in him that had nothing to do with protecting her. She's still with him. I don't know what that means, or whether it means anything permanent, but she's still there and they're still talking. And the financial conversation is ongoing and uncomfortable and real in a way it apparently never was before. The question I can't stop turning over is this. If the person you're building a life with is holding financial information that shapes every decision you make together, but technically hasn't taken anything from you, is that a betrayal? And what do you do with money that was always part of the picture, but never part of yours? If this one sat with you, subscribe. There's a new story every week, and none of them are simple. If you have a story of your own, we'd love to hear it at some point. But for now, please take care of yourselves.